So we're talking 3% of the wrestling community becomes an All-American.
Probably less.
Okay, probably even less.
Yeah.
So then you have 97 to 98% of the guys that felt the way that I felt. And it's like you leave and you almost feel like a loser. I'm fielding these calls with these guys, and it's like, no, dude, 5 guys on your team got on the plane and went to NCAAs. 3 of them came back with hardware. There's 40 guys on the team. Playing multiple sports, I think, is amazing for young people. Even as they get older, some of the college kids will come back in and they hear me talking multiple sports, and after practice they'll say, man, you know what, I loved football. I wish I played football in high school. I wish I didn't just stop playing football in 8th grade and focus just on wrestling. Don't let wrestling define you. Utilize everything that you learn from wrestling, put that into anything in life, and you're going to be successful. I'm so thankful and grateful that these young kids are getting these tools from you now, because once wrestling is over, everything that they're learning from you guys, they're now going to utilize in life. Like, I'll still fall into these traps. My job is 100% commission based. I take L's. People go to other lenders.
All right, we're here with the great Pete Reilly, Reilly Wrestling Club. Pete, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
Of course, Gene. Thanks for having me, buddy. Things are going well.
Absolutely. Love your videos. Been seeing it for quite some time of you speaking to the wrestlers. Great lessons. Clearly, we're perfectly aligned with all this talk about that. When did you get started with your club?
I got started right around COVID time. Well, even prior to that, going to Johnson & Wales, Coach Morris used to tell us back in the day to pay it forward, give back to the sport that gave to you. So right away, 22 years old, I started coaching wrestling on the high school level, which was really all I knew for about 12 years until I was coaching at Howell High School, and they asked me to coach the Little Sharks program, 5-year-old intro to wrestling. All my experience was high school kids. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no problem. I mean, I only had one kid at the time. He was a little baby. I'm like, yeah, I got time. So I spent that winter with the little ones, and it was great. It was a breath of fresh air for me. It was outside of the high school grind, if you will. And it was super exciting. And then as some time went by, I became the head coach of the Predator Rec program. And then COVID kind of shut the world down. And I had a kindergartner home every day, Zoom learning on a computer. And I'm like, dude, we need to do something. Like these Reilly boys, we got too much energy for this sit at home stuff. So at that time, I was doing something that I called the Lean Mean Quarantine. And I would jump on video every day for 60 days straight. And I was doing Zoom workouts with high school kids, youth kids. It was a really great thing. And then just shortly after that, we just started going to this small pole barn every Sunday morning. And then before you know it, Zach Cunliffe was there with his kids and a lot of just my buddies. We were just rolling. Sean Dedine was bringing Axel back then. And we were just rolling once a week. And it was great. And then before you knew it, word of mouth, people started coming and we're like, oh, man, we got to kind of outgrew this place. Then we went over to Impact MMA. So this is back, I would say, 2020. Went to Impact MMA, and that was just one Sunday a week. And then before you know it, fast forward till about 2 years ago, we ended up at the Howell PAL. We started adding days, and now we're up to 3 days a week of wrestling.
That's awesome. And I mean, there's a lot of young kids in that area that wrestle. Like, not all areas have big wrestling community. Like, you're in an area where there are a lot of wrestlers.
Yes.
So that's awesome. And so what nights of the week is it usually, and weekends you do also?
Sundays really seems to be the wheelhouse of the club. We have a tots group at 9:00, and then what I call the wheelhouse is our 10:15 group. It's just youth, anywhere from like 7 to about 12. And then we have a small group that comes in, some high school guys, kind of like resource room wrestling, I call it, just like smaller group focusing on the details. And then we roll Tuesdays with youth, and then middle school, high school. And then Fridays has been our new day. We added that about 3 weeks ago. Same type setup, youth for an hour, middle school, high school for an hour. And then we're going to be doing some fun stuff the end of the month. We're going to have our first one. We're going to be doing a singlet dual meet practice. Really, a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about, I see firsthand every day in the wintertime. And I'm just trying to get these guys A little bit easier to navigate the match day fear and the angst that I personally felt as a wrestler, the nerves, kind of create this match environment with singlets on, and just like, hey man, this isn't a battle to the death. This is a sport that we're supposed to be enjoying here. So if the kids can navigate, the matches a little bit better in the off season, hopefully they feel a little bit more comfortable in the wintertime.
Yeah, just having multiple opportunities to feel like a match, then it makes you more comfortable, like you said.
Right.
Talk about the difference coaching the different age groups, especially when they're really young, like the tots. What's your emphasis? What's your focus there? And then how does that change or remain continuous throughout?
For sure, man. The tots come in just 1 day a week. In my opinion, these kids don't need too much more than that. But we like to keep it fun. We just like to have a good time. Sometimes I say the tots group is a glorified daycare center. Don't expect to come in there and learn a roll through till or anything else like that. We're trying to keep a upbeat, happy, positive energy environment for them to love the sport as a young kid, get some life lessons along the way. I always make sure that I'm talking to them about things that are way more than wrestling, like, listening, paying attention, believing in yourself. So the 9 o'clock group is really, about 15 minutes warm up, do some games, some takedown lines. You kind of get everybody in order, kind of do a double leg on 5 different guys, rotate, added in a half this week. But for the most part, it's really just having a good time, getting a good workout, getting a good sweat. And then there's like a 15-minute breather for me in between. And I kind of have to shift gears because the next group that comes in, they do have wrestling experience. They have match experience. They've been at it for a few years. So the tempo it's still the same vibe. We're still having a good time, but we're in there to work. We're in there to feel a little bit of struggle in 2025. My opinion, depending on what kind of household you grow up in.
Mindset Monday is brought to you by our official sponsors, Eat Clean, bro. Make sure you order today, get them delivered right to your house. Check them out, and make sure you put in your discount code MINDSET.
Things are a little bit soft out there, if you will. So if they have to feel a little bit of toughness on the wrestling match, my opinion, that's a hidden blessing for these kids because real life is coming, and real life is not this soft serve Dairy Queen that we like to give our kids here and there. So definitely more intense, but still great energy. I'm all about energy, and I just want these kids to have a good enough time, struggle enough. I kind of do these things. I'm like, hey, raise your hand if you felt a little struggle throughout practice today. The kids will raise their hand. I'm like, that's a good thing because your parents aren't giving it off to you, but your parents are feeling struggle every single day, and they're getting back on the mat.
Right. Absolutely. And then talk about how you so looking at that big life picture, obviously, and then also how you give a balanced approach to the sport, especially at these younger ages. That we spoke about this yesterday over the phone about, hey, it's good these kids play other
Yeah.
sports too, which is keeping it fun, keeping it light. We're looking more at the long term, and also it helps aid their wrestling.
Yes, absolutely. I really do feel that it's very important for kids to play multiple sports. Now, I'm not talking to the small percentage of guys out there that we both know and see in the NCAAs and everything. I'm talking more to the masses. I do believe that there are kids that could start wrestling at a very young age, go all in on just wrestling, and be able to have a successful career, successful life. But the masses, I personally feel that playing multiple sports, I think, is amazing for young people. Um, Even as they get older, some of the college kids will come back in and they hear me talking multiple sports. And after practice, they'll say, man, you know what? I loved football. I wish I played football in high school. I wish I didn't just stop playing football in 8th grade and focus just on wrestling. I think the multiple sports, I think wrestling helps these kids in other sports, but I also think that mentally playing the other sports tricks the kids that they're not leaving Atlantic City saying, okay, I have 364 days to come back to this place. They're leaving AC. Okay, it's baseball season. Okay, nice. Boom. Now I'm going to take everything that I just did in wrestling. I'm going to put that into baseball. So I think that playing multiple sports is amazing physically, for them to enjoy their childhood, and also, everything kind of comes back to wrestling with us because it's what we know, it's what we love. But I think wrestling helps in all aspects of life and in all sports.
Oh, absolutely. And especially, like you said, with our society the way it is, unfortunately, a lot of things are just, catering to softness and excuses and pointing the finger and criticizing, blaming, and complaining. And wrestling is just a sport where it's personal responsibility. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and everyone knows it. So it's inescapable. You're definitely going to get that in the sport of wrestling, if nowhere
Oh,
else.
100%. 100%. And you should be grateful that you found it on the mat. That's been something that I've been saying recently. And one of the things that I've been talking about a lot lately is the baby turtle. So the baby turtle, in order to swim in this big powerful ocean, it has to develop the physical strength and the mental strength to climb up a huge hill of sand to get into the ocean, myself included. As parents these days, we're putting swimmies on in the ocean, where we're doing what we think as parents is helping them, but they're not internally and physically gaining the tools that they need to navigate that powerful ocean. So I think that any type of wrestling adversity that comes their way is a blessing.
Yes, without a doubt. Any other story? I know you have a ton of these stories, different philosophies you have as coaching. Anything else that you could share that would help some of the coaches, some of the young coaches like yourself out there to relate to these guys better? Because that's what I always love seeing about your videos. It looks like your guys, even though they're young, they're locked in, they're having fun, they're paying attention. You're able to relate to them in a certain way that a lot of coaches don't necessarily do, or would
Yes.
like to do better.
Yes. My relatability is something that has happened based on energy, but also my own wrestling journey. I think having that awareness and understanding that I struggled mentally on the mat. I mean, I was a nervous wreck. I would let other people's views and opinions of the guy I was about to wrestle internally affect me. I've learned from you and your brother. I've learned from Penn State. Um, I personally quit wrestling my junior year of high school after having an awesome off season. I went to Jay Robinson camp by myself. They gave me the hat for being the hardest worker. I was checking all the boxes. And then right before the first tournament of the year, I packed it in. I instantly regretted it the very next day. So my coaching philosophy is almost geared towards, now I wrestled from 9 to 22. So that's 13 years with 1 year of not competing. And then I was academically ineligible in college. So I guess 2 years. But those 2 years created the coach that I have today. Back to that relatability point. Like, I never want a kid to feel the way that I felt. Now, that also created a little bit of a softness within me that I had to channel and say, no, like, I have to be a savage with them. Like, I have to push them. My whole, wrestling journey wasn't struggle. It was, I loved it. I loved the practices. I loved pushing myself. And I say success is on the other side of struggle. Success is on the other side of those pain points that you feel. All because I quit doesn't mean if I get a little bit louder and intense with a kid, he's never going to show up. So really just kind of learning, myself and what the kids need, and understanding that, the energy is real, and, you know, y- the way your message comes across can hold more weight than your message, and understanding that each kid might need something a little bit differently. And just, I tried to create what I thought maybe I needed. I was probably getting the things I needed, but maybe as a teenager, I wasn't really retaining it. Maybe the message was delivered a little bit off, that I wasn't necessarily, retaining it or acting on it. Um, but it's just been a huge passion for me to just be able to help these young kids. And when you make it more about life and less about wrestling, that's when the real, in my mind, when the real impact happens. And I just have an organic way. It's my way. And if a lot of my friends, and a lot of the wrestling community, I think a lot of my stuff is a little bit against the grain. but that's okay for me because this is the way that I like to deliver it.
What would you
And
think that would be against the grain?
just my philosophies, I think, are a little bit against the grain around here, which is fine. But like I said, it's kind of just it's my approach. It's maybe it's not against the grain, maybe it's more just an internal thing. But I don't think wrestling is all that fun in a lot of places. And, like we like to have a good time. Like we're, it's not that practice is just like lethargic, lazy and running around, but I'd like to try to make the kids like enjoy the process. Maybe that's the against the grain approach or,
Yeah.
just my philosophies with, playing multiple sports and, not wrestling 7 days a week for 10 years. Being a kid, fall off your bike, have a cast, get some stitches. We don't really see kids in 2025 with a cast anymore, with stitches anymore. And I think we kind of lost falling out of a tree, falling off the bike, run around outside. I talk a lot about
Yeah.
the importance of putting the video games down,
Unstructured play. Like we used to have to go out if you wanted to get a game going.
Unstructured play.
You had to knock on friends' doors. Then you had to establish the rules.
I love that.
And my mom would always laugh at us. She said, "You guys would spend more time making the rules than actually playing the game." But I thought, think about the higher level cognition you're doing. You're trying to handicap a team properly. Where okay, this guy has the kid who's 2 years younger, so clearly they're not going to be able to do the same thing as other people. How do we create these teams fairly to get a game going? You're bringing everyone in. So there's a lot of thinking that goes with it, and then you're having fun. It's not just hey, your dad signs you up for this sport. You do it at this time. You do what the coach tells you to do. You go back to the video games, and then it's back to the structured atmosphere. You need both. You need both, like the two wings that make the bird fly.
You need both.
Right?
Yes.
But
you're absolutely right.
Like you said, we're kind of seeing it. The scales tip in the other direction now, where it's too structured. So, but
that's the whole other side of it. I was talking the other day, and it's like we can't forget that childhood overall is an amazing. It should be an amazing time, and we don't want to necessarily blink. And these kids are teenagers or in college, and it's like, how was childhood? It was all right if I won the tournament, but it was like, all right, like, did you get a chance to be a kid, or was your entire identity wrestling? And I think the
time is now to take your mindset to the next level with Wrestling Mindset. Make sure you go to our website, wrestlingmindset.com, and sign up for your free trial session today. Don't wait any longer. You want the mental edge right now. When you sign up for the free trial session, you're also going to get a copy of our free ebook, Building the Predator Mindset. This book has helped thousands of people build confidence, relax under pressure, get motivated, and build mental toughness in wrestling, school, and life. Make sure you sign up for your free trial session today.
I think I'm against the grain with my awareness of a lot of different things, because I think wrestling is sold on, if you will, all the amazing qualities that we know about. But I also experienced the other side of it, which is you graduate college, and unless you're a guy like Pat Glory that graduates and goes right to Wall Street, there's a little bit of this time here that you have all the energy and you might not have a goal because you're not necessarily in the workforce yet, or you don't have anything to channel all of this energy that you just spent. Your whole identity is you're a wrestler, and it's like, no, you're not, man. Like, you're a person in the workforce. So I think that, unfortunately for myself included, I stopped drinking alcohol when I was 29, but from 22 to 29, like, I was just looking around the room like, oh, that guy had 3 beers, I'm gonna have 10, just trying to kind of bottling up all that energy and passion. I think it's an amazing sport. But I say that we have our minds for the rest of our life. Is wrestling going to make you feel like if you don't have certain hardware, you're not enough? Is it making it completely chasing, a goal and falling short, that you're not enough? And it's like, no, man, like it's the journey along the way, the sacrifices that you made to get to that goal. If you fell short, you're not a loser, so I just think that just a lot. I feel a lot of calls from college guys, and I start realizing the numbers of guys that are national champs is so low. The goals of guys that actually make the podium are so low. So there's a whole nother percentage of guys. So like, what's the percentage, Gene, you think, year in and year out, of college wrestlers that actually get on the podium in all three divisions plus JUCO? What, in your opinion, do you think though is actually the percentage of guys that become All-Americans?
Out of 100 guys, there's got to be 3, maybe
Okay.
less, probably
Okay.
less.
Okay. So we're talking 3% of the wrestling community becomes an All-American.
Probably less.
Okay, probably even less.
Yeah.
So then you have 97 to 98% of the guys that felt the way that I felt. And it's like you leave and you almost feel like a loser.
Yep.
And I'm fielding these calls with these guys, and it's like, no, dude, 5 guys on your team got on the plane and went to NCAAs. 3 of them came back with hardware. There's 40 guys on the team. So
And
30
hardware.
guys. Yeah.
And if I could, just because they got on the podium does not mean that they were necessarily happy, because
Right.
the guy who took second had ultimate heartbreak. The guy who
Right.
took fourth, the guy who took sixth, who did the semi slide. You're looking
Yes.
at a 0.0 something percent of the people that ended the season somewhat happy.
Right. So my focus is kind of on that 97%, the 99%. Everybody for the most part. I love the dudes that are hammers and NCAA champs. Like I'm such a fan of the sport, but I have relatability to those other guys. Which is a monster percentage, of the community, and being able to field some of these calls, having the experience that I did on the high school level, developing the relationships with these kids. I'm grateful that these calls come my way and I can give them, the other side of things. Like, college wrestling is very, get the plaque, become an All-American, become an NCAA champ. And I think there's a whole other side of that mentally, for these human beings that are now navigating life at 22 years old, like, are you holding on to the fact that you fell short like I did? Like, so just really understanding that you're gonna have your mind for the rest of your life. Don't let wrestling define you. Utilize everything that you learn from wrestling, put that into anything in life, and you're going to be successful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As you're talking, it's making me think about this even from a different perspective. That what's hitting me is that when we see ultimate heartbreak in sports, that in the past, before our generation, that was more relegated to people who were like professional athletes or nationals, but it wasn't as much wrestlers who've been wrestling pretty much from a young age all year round. Granted, we played outside, we scraped our knees, we played other sports, but you and I dedicated a lot of time to wrestling at a young age, year round. And that's like kind of our cohort. So that's the first generation of basically young kids who have to basically deal with not achieving their goal, something that was a massive, like, think about that. That's very different than other generations of wrestlers. Clubs weren't out there. There weren't the clubs, the camps as prevalent as once we started being, as when we were younger. You could wrestle all year round. So now a young kid has to cope with, I didn't get something that I had to spend all year working towards.
Wow.
That's a unique issue in all of sports history, basically.
Yeah, I just got the chills thinking about that. I've never thought about it in that lens.
Me either.
Then even more than that, yeah, even more than that, it's like, okay, so there's a lot of power to this, and I still have the chills right now. So now you're taking these individuals that are the first time that this has ever happened, per se.
Right.
Like we've never thought about it. And then now you're out in real life. Okay. So now you're a dad. Now you're, dealing with work. Now you're dealing with struggle and failure. And, that's the mental stuff that I'm talking about, that I bring right back to you guys, which is, I'm so thankful and grateful that these young kids are getting these tools from you now, because once wrestling is over, everything that they're learning from you guys they're now going to utilize in life. Like, I'll still fall into these traps. My job is 100% commission based. I take L's. People go to other lenders. Appraisals fall short, and I'm the
Yeah.
kid. As a grown up, I'm that kid from that generation that worked year round and fell short. So I'll kind of fall back into that. Where fast forward, when these young people that got to work with you guys are out there, they're going to be like, okay, um, okay, I fell on hard times. This is one of the lines that I say, life is the wrestlebacks. So now you take a kid who, fast forward, he's our age. He's got 3 kids, 4 on the way, whatever it may be. He's got a job. He's got everything on the line every single day. And he's used to it mentally. He can navigate it physically on the mat, but mentally is where the real power comes. And I give you guys so much credit. And I love that. We talk about the relatability I have with the kids, the relatability of you guys creating wrestling mindset and the stories that you told. Like, I wrestled against your brother, Jeff. So
Yeah.
we came up around the same time. Like, I
Yeah.
would see you guys, and, wrestling has a way of, you almost are judging individuals that you've never met before, if that makes any sense. Like, oh, this guy's great. This guy's he doesn't struggle mentally. And then I saw Yanni. I was talking to Shane Wrightsman the other day, and we were watching Yanni's video, and Yanni was saying that how much good it's done for him to coach and give back to kids. He's
Right.
one of those guys that we judge from the couch watching ESPN. Oh, this kid
Right.
doesn't struggle. This kid's a wrestling robot. Anthony Knox. He talked about his journey. He opened up about everything that went on. And I'm like, whoa, Anthony Knox is the real human being? I thought this kid was a wrestling robot. He struggles
Yeah.
too. He didn't eat or sleep for a whole week and found a
Right.
way to win states for the 4th time. Like, this kid is power.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And like, now you look at our generation who started wrestling year round and started going to clubs year round. So now you have to cope with how do you now move forward into life, because technically you didn't even really start life per se, but you've had
Right?
this life experience where you essentially were like a professional athlete. Well, now it's like on steroids, because now it's not like there's just clubs around. There's many clubs around. You're expected to go to clubs. You're expected to go to more tournaments. Strength training, nutrition training, mindset. Now the kids are actually operating as almost a professional athlete. So now what happens when they don't, and there's always the expectation, like the people you're around are training for a state championship or a national championship. Like, you might not be an Anthony Knox, but you might be with him in the practice room. So now you
Oh,
think,
yeah.
why am I not doing what he's doing? So it's just, and social media, like for us, if you wanted to get away from box scores or records, you don't go on the New Jersey Forum, or you don't pick up the newspaper that day, which is hard enough as it is. Now
True.
kids' entire social life is Instagram, Snapchat, and who are they friends with? But all the people they were on national teams with and tournaments. So you're seeing it constantly. It's a flood. It's a bombardment of all these people who are accomplishing or not accomplishing. And how does a kid deal with that? And most importantly, how do you properly contextualize that and use that as a positive towards the rest of your life? It's not easy.
Yes. If you could, if the kid who's pretty much doing most of what Anthony Knox does, he's at the same club. He's still getting the hardware, but he's not undefeated. He wasn't a state champ, and he wasn't a 4-time state champ. I just want that kid to understand, like, dude, we're all so proud of you.
Yeah.
We're also like, you made immense sacrifices. Don't compare yourself to Anthony Knox. If you want to compare yourself to anything, look around your high school, and there's 2,000 kids that are walking the building. What are those kids doing day in and day out? There's a whole nother side to all this. Be proud of Anthony Knox, which is amazing. I think, just kind of learning the sport and, the relationships and different things like that. I think a lot of what plays into Anthony Knox is, he's checking all the boxes, but I think his mind is in the right spot, and I think that, just having that ability. I never understood why I was such a nervous wreck on match day. I mean, I'm talking knot in my stomach all day, draining energy, being in great physical shape, but exhausted 30 seconds into the match. just,
Yeah.
the worry, the fear, the results based. So like I'm sitting here watching and listening to you guys, and I'm just telling these kids exactly what you guys have taught me. But
Yeah.
that's back to what I was saying about you guys, is the relatability. Hearing about some things that you were subtly saying to your brother that always come from a good place. It always comes from a good
Right.
place with the parents.
Right.
It always comes from a good place with the teammates, from the brother. Like you probably wanted your brothers to win more than you wanted to win.
Yeah.
You would never plant seeds of doubt. Now looking back, you would never plant seeds of doubt. But for you guys to be able to bottle that all up, to create something, and for it to be able to spread, and it's the most powerful part of life and sports is your mindset. I mean, so
Yeah.
mhm.
It's not easy to navigate because you're
No.
dealing with these paradoxes. I spoke about this with Ben Askren, of course. Him and Joe DeSena, the Spartan guy, the Spartan owner, they put out a book about this. But it's you have to have, if you want to get good at wrestling, you need to basically dedicate your life to it. Then when you step out on the mat, hey,
And a big shout out to our sponsors, Eat Clean Bro and Champion Athletes. You need to eat like a champion to think like a champion. Mindset makes the difference.
not that big of a deal. Who cares? Just go ahead, grip it and rip it. It's like, well, you're structuring your entire life to win, and now you're saying don't think about winning in the match, right? And then also when you have heroes, you want to have these heroes to get you to motivated to work harder, but don't compare yourself to them because they're different than you. Well, if you're thinking about you're dealing with these paradoxes that seem to be in conflict, so you need to kind of work through that and have them in their proper categories in our minds. And it's like you said, for us, we're just kind of winging it. Like, hey,
Right.
hopefully today it all lines up, but maybe it won't. We'll see. We'll see what shows up tonight. There was just
100%.
no consistency and structure to our thinking, and that's what we hope to provide with the athletes.
Oh, absolutely. And you guys absolutely are providing that. One of the other things that I'll say is, the wrestling journey should be more of a stick shift philosophy. You have a fast car, you can't go from first gear to fifth and expect your transmission not to fall out of the bottom. Now, what I was super aware of when we were growing up was the burnout, if you will. The kid whose parents had their foot on the gas, and you knew that the kid wasn't into it. If the kid's driving the boat and he's got his foot on the gas, that's incredible. But I think parents need a few things. Number one, they need their own internal growth. Not even just specific to sports, like specific to their life. Like, dude, your coach told you to take your varsity jacket off, or he told you to leave it all in the field on your last game. Leave it all in the field. It's not your kid's fault that you have so much unfinished business, dude. Like, take your varsity jacket off and get back, be a dad, So many of the convos are like, don't talk about wrestling on the way home. Don't talk about wrestling on the way there. Don't sit there and watch the kid in the quarterfinals that your kid's about to wrestle in the semis and expect him not to get in his own head. But I think just having that awareness of your kid, what's working, what's not working, but really stick shifting. It might sound a little bit over dramatic, if you will, but I personally think that youth tournaments for some kids are traumatic experiences. You
Definitely.
have tears, blood, nerves, fear, whatever else we can come up with. I mean, this is a traumatic experience for a young boy. And dude, you show up to these tournaments, you're talking a 5-year-old kid is out there, 6-year-old kid. We have the Little Sharks program in Howell that I coached, and these kids are young, and like we have fun. It's similar to the Tots group at the club, so we're having fun. So there's a tournament in Wall, and the one little guy shows up, and I'm talking to the parents like, hey, listen, we're not trying to force feed anyone to go, So the kid goes, he goes on the mat, he's crying, he's a nervous wreck, and he comes up after he's on deck, and I'm saying to the parents, I'm like, you don't have to send him back out there. Like, we just saw the last match. Like, there's no, like, what good is going to happen putting him back in that same exact environment? So in that case, the kid ended up leaving, and it's just like, looking back, I would have just said, we don't know any moves yet. Like, we're 3 weeks into the season, and one of the things I'll say is, the tournaments are all, we know all the dates. Like, they're all on the calendar. They're going to go on whether your son goes there or not. Does your son need the tournament? Do you think he needs the tournament? Do you need the tournament?
Does the kid even want to go to the tournament?
Does he want to go? Exactly. And if he's in that traumatic experience on a Saturday morning, we have to be aware of what just went on Sunday, Monday. Are we going to put him in rec practice Monday and then right to rec and the club on Monday? So, like, what are we doing here to stick shift it? So fifth gear was Saturday, put it in second. Is he being a regular kid Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? So just all types of stuff like that makes it exciting for me. I'm a wrestling dad now. And I was, my son's first ever match, he was 7 years old, and I'm way against the grain as a wrestling parent. Back to what I felt match day and everything. I never want my kid to feel these things. But my son actually told me recently that he doesn't get nervous in matches. He said he gets nervous in football games before the game starts when the coaches, the adults are all getting hyped, myself included. We got the music on, we're going freaking crazy. He said that makes him nervous, but he said wrestling doesn't make him nervous. And I'm like, oh man, that's amazing. But
let's keep it.
Exactly. But when I left his first ever match, thankful for you guys, I didn't say any of this stuff, but I'm driving from Old Bridge to Howell. It's about a half hour, 45-minute ride. He's thinking about Madden. He's got school in the morning. He's thinking about his matches. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we can go to club. We can go find a hill. We could run sprints every day. We could do push-ups every day. We could hand fight. Like, I'm like, I could send him to camp. Like, the kid's 7. I'm thinking all this stuff. And then even more than that, like, if I didn't know about you guys, learn from you guys, have my own wrestling journey. So if I'm just a regular guy that played sports and never wrestled before, I put my son in this environment, darn well I'm going off on the whole way home. Whether it's you should have scored more points, or I don't know what.
It's our nature. It's our nature. It's like, hey, I didn't hit my goals. You don't have to go through that. You could get your goal. The mentality is you can actually get your goals.
Yes.
Pete, it sounds like the same exact conversations Jeff and I are having every day. And it's, like we said, those paradoxes. It's like, know when to push, know when to pull, know when to let them be a kid. Now we got to bring him back, as you were saying before. Sometimes you got to be intense with the kid. Sometimes you do need to yell a little bit, and then you explain why you do it. And then it's, hey, let's have fun. Let's play a game. But if you're not looking at that ultimate perspective, and I keep tying it into that, you're not just looking at raising a wrestler. You're trying to raise someone who will be a good husband and father one day, someone who is a good son right now, a good teammate. If you're so myopic, you're just thinking about, how do I make my kid a better wrestler? We're going to say, hey, look, we got a hill right here. Let's do it. Let's do some extra sprints. Let's get in your stance in motion. Or, you see the kid, hey, you did enough wrestling this week. Hey, do you want to go to practice tonight? No. All right. Why don't we sit this one out? If I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses and I'm thinking about that kid at the wrestling club that he's neck and neck with, I'm going to say, hey, we got to get over to that club because that kid is going to be beating you next week. It's not the way to look at it.
Yeah, I kind of call that the wildfire that's created in the parents' room. So one of my lines is the parents need more coaching than the kids. And it's no knock on the parents. The parents who wrestled and the parents who haven't wrestled. It's no knock on any of them. We've never loved anything the way we love our children. We want them to be successful. Like, back to it all comes from a great place. I just feel that those parents' areas of the club and the rec or the tournament, it creates these wildfires. And like, we're all running our own race, but we don't know how the kid that we're comparing, our kid, we don't know how his life turns out, and we don't know how his wrestling journey turns out. He's 8 years old. He was a state champ. Is he going to be successful in high school? Like, I would love, my ultimate goal is for the kids to love wrestling from 14 to 22 and maybe even beyond. But are we in fifth gear in the left lane at 8 years old? I've never seen, when we were growing up, youth states was at like Lakewood High School, and the goal was always like high school state champ.
Right.
It's all shifted to like right now, like like we need it now. And it's like, okay, if he gets it now, is it sustainable? I hope it is. I hope your kid wins it at 8 and wins it every single year and becomes a 4-time NCAA champ. But we can't necessarily, as parents, compare ourselves to that boy because, like I said, we don't know how it's going to play out. He might hate his parents by 14. You know,
Right.
like
And then what good was that? Even if he's a state champ as a freshman, is
right.
that worth it? Ask yourself as a parent, is that worth it to have destroyed the relationship with your kid? And oh, but they were a state champ, so now you have all the bragging rights from the people at the club in your neighborhood. Take a hike. That's not what it's about. That's not what it's about.
You're so right.
Yeah. No, it's great stuff, Pete. We could talk about this stuff all day, and we got to do more shows like this because
I would love to.
It really is important that people need to hear this. These are great conversations, and I feel like we've broke some ground psychologically, uncovering what these kids are going through that really is unprecedented in history. And I don't think I'm being grandiose by saying that. Kids just were not immersed in sports like we were all year round, and then have to cope with not achieving a goal. That's a hard thing for a young kid, other than maybe the Olympians, but that's not like the average run of the mill kid here.
True.
So no, that's great stuff, Pete. Well, and we're super excited to be partnering with your club officially. I got to get over there soon. I got to speak to the kids, to the parents sometime. And like I said, thank you very much for everything. We loved having you on the show, and we love to have you back again.
Of course, Gene, thank you so much, man. Like I said, you guys are really, really impacting and changing lives. And even more than wrestling, you guys are going to be really helping these kids navigate life as an adult. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And our mind is so much more powerful than I ever gave it credit for. I used to say that your quads are the most powerful part of your body, but it's absolutely your mind. You know, if you could build some strong quads along the way, that's amazing. But if you could build that mind, that's where we all need to be.
That's it. Like you said, let's do both. Between two negatives, choose neither. Two positives, choose both.
I love it.
Awesome stuff, Pete. Keep up the great work. We look forward to seeing more of your videos. Take care.
Thank you. Will do, Gene. Thank you so much.